moving our agenda. Speaker Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Leader Scalise and these other members. It's a great day, but I've got to address a couple of things with you, and I need to start with something that's pretty serious. Chuck Schumer engaged in a lot of unusual activity last week, but among the most concerning was his invitation to activists nationwide. I want to quote to you what he said on PBS and I think in other venues, but this is what he said on that particular program, quote, "We are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts and going after these Republicans who are voting for this and forcing them to either change their vote or face the consequences," unquote. It was reminiscent of the threats he made to Supreme Court justices a year and a half ago or so on the steps of the Supreme Court. It's dangerous rhetoric, and that message was received. So we had far-left activists go into some of these events. They engaged in a physical altercation at least one of them, Representative Lawler in New York, just hours after he made that call to action. This isn't just a problem in that state, it's a problem across the country, and we had members who are rightfully concerned about threats of physical violence at their events and in their districts. In some cases, they even went to events for their children at school. It's gotten out of hand. That behavior cannot be tolerated. It's an enhanced threat environment for a lot of reasons, and we see Tesla dealerships being firebombed and all these things happening. It cannot be encouraged by leaders in Congress. So I am calling on Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries in the House to put an end to this, to explain that threats of violence and intimidation like that is not an acceptable form of political protest. We all believe in free speech. I used to defend it in courts, but this is something very different, and it's a very serious situation, and they need to get control of that. Chuck Schumer and congressional Democrats are feeling the heat, and they're lashing out because of it, and we saw all sorts of unusual activity over the last week. It's well chronicled. The Democrats have no vision, no message, no leader. You heard about it here today. The American people have taken note. CNN found that just 29% of the people view the Democratic Party favorably now. NBC found the number at 27%. Quinnipiac poll over the weekend was an interesting one. Since they've been taking the poll, which goes back many years, decades, congressional Democrats are at their lowest approval rating with their own base ever. They're 9 points underwater. What's really interesting about that, Politico did a piece on this, and they contrasted where the Democrats stand and where we stand. While they're at their lowest number of all time and they're 9 points underwater with their own base, congressional Republicans are at our highest mark ever, and we're at plus 69 points with our own base. That's a pretty stark contrast. And I think we all know why. Axios reported yesterday that Democrats are, quote, in their deepest hole in nearly 50 years. This is not a mystery. Everyone understands what's happening and why. In their haste to oppose President Trump in our efforts to make government more efficient, Democrats are cutting off their noses to spite their own face. Look, I've made a list of this. They're cheering the decline of an American company which employs over 100,000 workers. They refuse to celebrate the return of stranded American astronauts because SpaceX facilitated their return. Without a hint of irony, they're trading in their electric vehicles for SUVs, as was noted earlier. All right? They publicly refuse to stand for a childhood cancer survivor, victims of violent crimes during President Trump's joint address. Their message has gone from, it's more than just anti-Trump now, it's anti-American, and everyone sees that, and the polling reflects it. The American people are not stupid. They understand what's happening here. We have a word of advice to our Democrat colleagues. If you want to pull yourselves out of the wilderness and the doldrums that you're in, get on board with the American people who support our common sense agenda. It is common sense to keep men out of women's sports. It is common sense to secure the border and deport dangerous illegal aliens, as you talked about earlier. It is common sense to make government more efficient and cut fraud, waste, and abuse and do right by the taxpayer. We are not doing these things because they're Republican priorities. They are priorities because it's the right thing to do. And the American people want the right thing to be done. And the Democrats are opposing it, and they see it very clearly. Republicans in Congress enjoy record high levels of approval because we're engaging in what we understand to be simple truths, and we're delivering on it. We got a small majority, that's true. But this House GOP conference has stayed together and stayed laser focused on passing common sense legislation and executing the Trump agenda as quickly as possible. When we stay united, we do right by the people. We look forward to working with Leader Thune and our Senate counterparts to move that budget reconciliation bill. It will be the largest, most consequential piece of legislation in decades, maybe in one of the most in all of the history of Congress. We're excited to deliver that for the people, and we have no time to waste. We've got almost 80 million people that supported President Trump, and House Republicans. We all had our largest totals ever. We're going to do what they asked us to do, and we are not going to keep them waiting. And so you're going to see us moving aggressively here and across the country to make sure that happens. So I'll yield to some of your questions.
You just mentioned the Senate. Obviously, y'all released a statement yesterday about this. Do you think that the Senate's dragging their feet on reconciliation? Do you think they need to kind of speed things up and hurry up?
Well, look, I'm going to say this, and I've been saying this consistently, and I believe it. There's no daylight between House and Senate Republicans. We are one team. I speak with Leader Thune about this constantly, and with individual members of the Senate over there. We're all united on the mission, and there's been different ideas about how to complete the mission, but I think it's all coming together now. This week will be pivotal. We have a big meeting at the White House later today with the leaders in both chambers, Republican leaders, to unite and get this thing done. I don't fault the Senate. They've had a lot on their plates. They had to get all the confirmations done for the administration. It takes a lot of floor time. Leader Thune's kept them in 5 days a week, just working around the clock, getting their job done. But we began in the House. We have a bit of an advantage over the Senate because we began this a long time ago. In fact, it was a year ago in March that we first got the committee chairs together and said, start working on your reconciliation bill priorities. We knew that we would come to unified government. We were convinced that President Trump would win and that we would have the Senate and the House, and we wanted to be prepared to lead. We put together the playbook, as you've all heard me talk about so many times, and we did all that work. It took a lot of time, many, many months to get us to where we are. The Senate is a little bit behind pace, not because they weren't working hard, but because they were just engaging in other things. And so what we're trying to do now is fast forward their process so they can get the cliff notes of basically what we did for the last year and skip through some of those steps because we'll all get to the same point. And I think that's very important. I have been pressing very hard, very aggressively to get the reconciliation bill done by late spring. You've all heard me say that. I mean, I'm trying to get this to the president's desk for signature at least by Memorial Day. I think it's very important. I think the timing is very important because we have to bring stability to the markets. We've got to make sure everybody's tax rates are locked in, and they know that, so people can make decisions about expanding their businesses and jobs and other things. We've got to, it'll settle the bond markets, it will secure the border, it will help us to restore and maintain peace through strength, and of course it'll prevent the largest tax increase in U.S. history. All those things are very important to get done quickly so that the American people can feel the results of it. This is going to be a great, great piece of legislation, historic, and we're anxious to get it done. Second row.
Speaker Johnson, as you know, some of your Republican colleagues have signed on to an effort to force a vote on allowing proxy voting for new parents. Republicans use this method during the pandemic. Why not have a carve-out targeted for new parents for a short period?
So I addressed this in conference this morning. That's okay. You good? All right, we're good. All right, good. We addressed this in conference this morning. A handful of our colleagues have gotten behind the effort, and look, I'm a father. I'm pro-family. The Republican Party is pro-family. We want to make it as easy as possible for young parents to be able to participate in the process. But proxy voting, in my view, is unconstitutional. In fact, I feel so strongly about it, I helped present a brief to the United States Supreme Court just about 2 years ago, or longer now, all my days run together, years run together, but when Nancy Pelosi invented proxy voting, okay, using COVID as the excuse for that, it took us down a trail that I thought violated the very document that organized us. I don't think it's constitutional. I think the founders intended that you have you have a presence of the members there in person, not just for quorum calls, but for votes itself. This is a deliberative body. You cannot deliberate with your colleagues if you're out somewhere else. Now, there are family circumstances that make it difficult for people to attend votes. I understand that. I've had them myself. Many of us have. The leader was almost assassinated. He was out for months and missed a lot of votes. But his constituents understood that, and we did, and we carried forward. Here's the problem. If you create a proxy vote opportunity just for young parents, mothers and the fathers in those situations, then where is the limiting principle? People have colleagues who feel equally convicted about this. Look, what if someone is ill, or what if their spouse is ill? What if their child, contracts some sort of disease or cancer, heaven forbid, and they need prolonged treatment? Can they be out for that? There's no limiting principle that would that would stop that, I think, if we go down that road. And so I believe it's unconstitutional. I believe it violates more than 2 centuries of tradition in the institution. And I think that it opens a Pandora's box where ultimately maybe no one is here and we're all voting remotely by AI or something. I don't know. I don't think that's what Congress is supposed to be. So I addressed it, in the room with all the House Republicans this morning. I'm not angry at anybody for doing this. Understand the motives are pure. Anna Paulina Luna has brought it forward. She has pure motives, and I talked with her about it last night. But I just can't, as the leader of this institution and the one who's supposed to protect it, I don't feel like I can get on board with that, and I think I have an opportunity to speak out about it. So, yeah.
Last question. Mr. Leader, 2 questions on the same topic. Have you ever engaged in messaging app chats with the Trump administration about national security matters, that includes Signal, whatever, all of those things? And also, I think you know the story, but I'm curious if the Biden administration would have been found out that they were discussing national security attacks on other countries over Signal. I wonder how you would react to that.
Well, look, the White House came out with a statement, I think within the last hour. Somebody handed me what they said. They clarified there were no war plans discussed. There was no classified material sent on that thread. The White House counsel is looking into the matter, looking into how this other number was inadvertently added. Obviously, that was a mistake and a serious one. But I just want to say, thanks to President Trump and his strong leadership and all the everybody on that group chat, the leaders on that group chat are extraordinary people. I know them all personally. They're patriots. They're doing a great job for the country. And that was a successful mission. We're taking out Houthi terrorists. That's what the American people expect the administration to do, to restore peace through strength and to act decisively. So, look, they've acknowledged that there was an error, and they're correcting it. And I would have asked the same thing of the Biden administration. I don't think anyone should have lost their job over that because an errant number, found its way onto a dialogue between leaders. It's a mistake, but we got to correct it going forward, and they will.
Was the mistake adding the reporter, or was the mistake having us chat about these matters at all?
I don't use Signal. I don't know all the parameters of it, so it's not I'm not in a position to determine whether that's appropriate or not. You have to leave that to others. But I would just say, obviously, we got to be careful with these things, and I know that they will. Mike Waltz is a colleague of mine, former colleague, and he was born for the job. He is highly qualified. The president said he has total confidence in him, and we do as well. So, yeah. Last one. Yeah.
On judicial impeachments, you have a lot of resolutions that are in front of you right now. I know your focus is on budget reconciliation. Is your plan to bring up these impeachment resolutions that have been brought forward? And if you do, are you concerned this will stall any progress that you want to make with regards to budget reconciliation?
We're working with the Judiciary Committee, which is the appropriate area of jurisdiction for that. I talked to Chairman Jordan this morning about it. And they'll be having a hearing early next week, I believe, to highlight these abuses. Let me just say this, and I know that you all have seen the numbers, but this is a serious problem. I used to be a litigator. I was a constitutional law attorney. I used to litigate all these cases for 20 years. Routinely, I would have activist judges issue opinions against me, and I would go get them overturned on appeal. That is the process. But something is happening right now that has not happened before. In the last 100 years, listen to this, 67% of the injunctions issued against a president were issued against one president alone, and that's Donald J. Trump. 67% of the injunctions over the last 100 years. Okay, that's a problem. 92% of those were issued by judges who were known or accused of being partisan, Democrat appointees to the court. So that something unusual is happening, something that is out of the norm. It is a dangerous trend, and it violates equal justice under law, that critical principle. It violates our system itself. It violates separation of powers when a judge thinks that they can enjoin something that a president is doing that the American people voted for. That is not what the founders intended. So there's a natural tension between the branches of the government, and we're working through that. The Judiciary Committee is looking at alternatives. One of the bills that I really like that's already been through committee was authored by Representative Darrell Issa, and that would limit the scope of federal injunctions, the ability of one individual judge to abuse the system in this way. And it would be, in my view, a dramatic improvement on that. So we'll be moving, I think, that piece of legislation and some others to address it because we have an Article I authority under the Constitution to do that. We do have authority over the federal courts, as you know. We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power funding over the courts and all these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Will the judges testify before the committee?